Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Michael, this is PokeOz. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Today's video is all about how you should behave when the market seems to be in the doldrums. So stagnating and not really going anywhere. How should we behave? I thought I'd finally add some Japanese 151 boxes to there's heaps hidden here, there's heaps hidden in the basement, there's heaps hidden everywhere else, but in terms of the display I've got for you guys to look at while I'm doing some videos, I thought I might finally add some Japanese 151 boxes into the mix. And we've got Charizard up here and chilling, looking after them. So thank you, mate. Keep them safe. Anyway, what the plan of attack for this video, how we should behave, but I also want to delve into some Pokemon TCG graphs, some booster box graphs, and actually look into the graphs in more detail in terms of what's been happening, what we can learn from it, what the graph says in regards to trends, and ultimately come to some sort of conclusion about how we should behave. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Now, the first quote that comes to mind in terms of how we should behave during a downward trend or a stagnated period, so to speak, is this famous one from Warren Buffett, which says, "Be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful." And that rings true probably no more than ever recently, because we've seen some major anomalies over the last 3 years. And if anyone has been into the Pokemon investing space over the last 3 years, I don't want to go down, memory lane and repeat comments like Logan Paul and COVID that you've all heard a million times. So I'm not going to even get into that, but we all know that more people than ever have jumped into the Pokemon investing space. And also more people than ever have jumped into the Pokemon flipping space. Now, thankful for most of us true to heart collectors / investors, that seems to be pretty dead in the water now. Unless it's a super exclusive product, it doesn't really seem to exist anymore, which is great because there's nothing worse than it. It is still happening in the car industry, and it is super frustrating because we're still having some massive supply issues on certain models, and people are buying them with no intention to ever drive them and selling them for a higher price on the secondary market, meaning people that actually want it to drive it can't get their hands on it and have to pay a premium if they want it quickly. Much like what happened in the Pokemon card world, it's the exact same concept. If someone wanted something to open up with their kids or have some fun with or keep as part of their sealed collection, they couldn't get it because people knew there were supply issues and people were buying it or scalping it, so to speak, or bots were buying it and then selling it for a higher premium on the secondhand market and making people pay more for it. And that's just frustrating. Like, not only do I have to deal with it in the hobby that I love, I have to deal with it every day when I go to work. Anyway, that quote rings true to what's been happening. And by that, what I mean predominantly is when things were going well and everything was ticking and shooting upward north really quickly, lots of people jumped on this bandwagon. So it was almost the opposite of Warren Buffett's quote. People were being greedy when other people were being greedy. But you know what the quote says, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. And right now, it seems like there's some fearful people in the market. There's commentary for the first time in a long time back in the Pokemon world that, booster boxes are stagnated. Scarlet and Violet's not going to move. Even Sword and Shield early sets like Vivid Voltage and Darkness Ablaze, people have parked their money there for 3 years and seen little to no returns, especially if they bought it at a pumped up price due to supply issues and everything else that came in 2020 during COVID. So, some of those comments ring true. And before we get into answering exactly how we should behave right now, I thought we'd delve deeper into some of the graphs that we all see, because we look at them every day. And have we ever thought we could actually learn something from them? So I'm just going to bring up a random one here. So this is an Evo Skies yearly, it's the last year off TCG player. Now, it's a no-brainer, and I don't want to insult people's intelligence, but it's pretty clear, right? The x-axis, which is the one running along the bottom, is time. So we're looking at the last year. That's our time period. And the y-axis, of course, running vertically is the price. And when it comes to that, this line graph, for lack of a better word, it's literally just a graph depicting sales prices over time. Like, that's as simple as it gets. Now, when it comes to share market world or stock market world, a lot of people will analyze graphs and try and pull some information out of it to, I suppose, make some behavioral choices about where they should park their money. Now, can we do the same with Pokemon? Not really sure. I think the behavior of the Pokemon market is extremely different to the behavior of the stock market and obviously companies. But if we think about a couple of things, right? So normally, if we see in a stock a price trending upwards and an increase of stock, it suggests a bull market. Like, there's more of it and people are willing to pay more for it. So it's like, wow, that stock or that product or that company is running hot. Now, alternatively, if we see an increase in stock and a decrease in the price of that stock, it generally suggests there's some downward pressure and people are more likely to sell, or there's some increased pressure to sell. So I guess you could almost argue that if we look at the trends, and I might start by looking at a few here, we might start off with chilling rain, right? So I'll bring chilling rain up on here. This is a really hard one, because this is what I mean by it behaves differently to stocks, in that, you know, this whole volume metric, as in how many stocks are available overall, is different in Pokemon cards. Like, it's hard to measure. I mean, we can look at eBay sales, we can look at total amounts of listings on eBay, we can look at TCG sales and total amounts of listings on TCG Player, but it's so hard to gauge a true, I suppose, concept of how much volume of something's on the market or left on the market. Like, who really knows? We all know it gets printed really, really heavily. But with chilling rain, right, there seems to be a stagnation. And it rings true for a lot of Sword and Shield sets, in that we've seen this uptick in price at the start of the year, or probably towards the end of last year, continuing on for the first quarter of this year. And then the last 6 to 9 months has pretty much been this flat line for a lot of Sword and Shield sets. And in some cases, some other trends rather than just flatlining. And I'll get to one of those in a second. So it brings about the question, what can we take out of this? Why was there a massive uptick? And now why the stagnation? And you could go down the path that everyone's talking about, which is, you know, a few reasons. There was an uptick because supply started to dwindle for a set like Chilling Rain, as in most big box retailers online and in-store had sold out of this product. So it was just like single sales left, and all of a sudden it went whoop. And then, you know, you could talk about the release of Scarlet and Violet, and then people getting this, I suppose, FOMO. Like, there was increased buying pressure because of that FOMO, because, you know, well, we might miss out on Sword and Shield now. Scarlet and Violet doesn't seem as good. We miss those old arts. We missed the vibe from Sword and Shield, so therefore we better grab it. So there was this increased, I suppose, buying pressure for Sword and Shield sets. And then we get to that flat line, so to speak, and we ask ourselves, why has that happened? And I think an answer can come from a few places. The first one being Scarlet and Violet's maybe started to actually take off, as in people are going, you know what, these are pretty sweet. We've had sets like Paldea Evolved, which was somewhat cool. We've had sets like Obsidian Flames, which is hot because people just want to chase Charizard. And then we've had obviously Scarlet and Violet 151, which is this retro throwback to the late 90s that has just brought a lot of people back into the hobby. We've also obviously seen massive, massive pressure in the economy. And I don't want to go into it, but we all know what it is. It's increased mortgage interest rates, increased loan interest rates, increase or inflation across nearly every sector of the economy, where just day-to-day living's gotten really, really expensive. So there's less disposable income, for lack of a better word, to buy into things like hobbies. So all of a sudden there gets this, I suppose, demand taken away from Sword and Shield sets because, well, people with the disposable income are buying the newer sets because they're cool and they're new and they want to join in on the trend. And there's not enough disposable income to go back in time and buy sets like Chilling Reign. Another one I wanted to bring up is Fusion Strike. Now this, just to show, this has followed pretty much the exact same trend line as Chilling Reign. And I won't go into detail because it's really suffered a fairly similar fate in that massive increase from sort of November last year onwards, and then this 9-month stagnation where things have just remained really, really still. Now, on the other hand, this is a set with a different trend line, which is Lost Origin. So we've seen a few things with this. Lost Origins jumped, it's then dropped, and then it's stagnated. And the drop can really be attributed to more supply coming on the market. We all know Lost Origin around that drop, or just before that drop, got a pretty hefty reprint. And that has seen prices of the set drop quite drastically. And now it's just stagnated. So what can we take out of this? A few points come into mind to sort of summarize the whole thing. First one is, don't buy into the false signals. A lot of people like to buy when things are trending up, and hence that first Warren Buffett quote. They'll hop on the train pretty quickly, and alternatively, a lot of people will start selling when they see something stagnating and not making them money, or even in Lost Origin's case, dipping down in price. So don't get, I suppose, swept up in these false signals. The one thing about Pokemon for 2023, if we're talking about learning from the hobby and learning from our investing, is not every year is going to see massive gains. This is probably the year of things just leveling out and recorrecting themselves. Another thing that comes to mind with a conclusion on all this is historical data may not predict future performance. And we've all heard that quote before from things like the share market, and that leads right into that previous point about the false signals. Just because something's done well doesn't mean it will continue to do well. Just because something's dropped or stagnated doesn't mean it's going to stay that way forever. And I like to be positive about this. Just because they've stagnated over the last 9 months doesn't mean the next 18 months is going to be the exact same. I still see for a lot of sets that stagnation continuing until supply really, really starts to dry up, or alternatively, an increase in demand happens for these sets. But just because it's stabilized the last 9 months, don't be fooled. It's not going to stay that way forever. It will eventually start ticking back up. And the final thing that comes to mind is, can we even pull a trend out of this data? Is it like the share market? Can we? I don't think we can. I really don't think so. So don't get swept up in just looking at the numbers from a 3-month period or a 6-month period or a 9-month period, even a 12-month period, and go, that's the trend, it's going to continue that way, or that's the trend, it's going to continue that way, or that's the trend and it's going to continue that way. It's just not. If you're looking at Pokemon investing with the right lens, which should be some sort of a long-term focus, you shouldn't even be worried about the noise that's coming out at the moment. In fact, you almost should be excited about it. You should be excited that people are getting fearful. You should be excited that people are selling off products. You should be excited that you can buy Sword and Shield, Alt Art, Trainer Gallery sets at not much above retail price. Like, they are still cheap. And I can guarantee you in 5 years' time, they will not be cheap. So my advice, over the next 9 months, my game plan is to continue to buy in if I see a good deal on Sword and Shield, Alt Art, Trainer Gallery sets. That's my focus. I'm not going all the way back in time to Sword and Shield Base or Rebel Clash. Those sets don't have the hits. They've done a lot of appreciation. The Sword and Shield, Alt Art, Trainer Gallery sets are fantastic sets, and that's where I want to focus. So that's the moral of the story for me. Once again, I'm Michael. This is PokeOz. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll catch you next time.